It occurred to me that I had already had this idea. Hello everyone, and welcome back to my channel, Just Another Struggling Writer, the beleaguered author's one-stop shop for commiseration and hopefully inspiration. My name is Carrie Scher, and I am just another struggling writer. Well everyone, today is the start of another writing vlog, and first, right off the bat, this writing vlog is already getting off to a much better start than the last couple have. If you've been following along, you know that I have been pretty worn down of late with family issues and being ill and stuff going on at work and just some other things really putting a damper on my writing and my creative output. However, I think I'm finally coming out of the woods and getting back to a place where I can be creative on a regular basis, and I'm actually really starting to get reconnected with the story after taking several extended breaks, which is really exciting for me because if I don't feel connected to it, then it's just really hard for me to feel motivated to work on it, which again extends the break, which, perpetuates the feeling of being disconnected. And it's just a, never-ending cycle. So getting back into it, really engaging with it critically and thinking about the shape of it and whatnot is getting me back into feeling like I can write the story. This is the right time. I am still connected to it. And that is the most exciting part. So I think when I last left you, I was talking about solving a mystery, and not solving a mystery that is in the story itself, but something that was a mystery to me. It was a kind of plot element that was a complete black hole of information to me. And no matter how long I pondered on it or thought about it or tried to answer it myself, the answers weren't just coming to me. And this has been going on not just in the recent months that I've been working on this project, but all the way back to 2 years ago when I first conceived of this idea. I always knew this question needed to be answered. I needed to know, because those details mattered on how they folded into the plot. Even though this mystery doesn't have a direct impact on the present day plot, there are things that are connected to it. And so while the details may not matter explicitly in this book, I still did really need to know the answer for myself so that I could appropriately touch on the subject in this book. I think I mentioned last week that I just started writing it all out in my notebook, just asking myself questions. Does this make sense? Would this have happened? Why not? What about this? Is this a feasible idea? Does the secret government agency have anything to do with this? Or how does the cult play into this? And asking myself these questions and kind of working out on paper how to logically navigate how this event would occur. And it was very insightful. It did help me generate some ideas, but none of them really felt like the right ones either. But what I had to do was just keep working at it. And that is what I did today. I just sat down and read over my notes and decided today is the day I'm figuring it out. I had some really good jumping off points, and that is where I started. I took all of the ideas, everything that I had thought about even previous to this exercise, everything I had written down in my notes, and just kind of worked through each part of this mystery, the sequence of events, how it starts, how it ends, how it affects the main character, how the other major players involved with the plot may or may not be involved, and how it ends. And eventually, I just cobbled together several different ideas and massaged them until it created something that I think is pretty linear and pretty understandable and that makes sense. And in doing so, I actually helped myself flesh out my world just a little bit more. I think I have mentioned in the past about how when I am world building and when I am getting ready to draft a project, I think very, very narrowly on if it matters to the plot. And if it doesn't, I sort of neglect it and I don't develop it. And that results in a first draft that is very, very empty. It is just results oriented, just boom, 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 plot point, without really developing anything beyond what matters for the plot. And that's fine for a first draft, but I am trying to get better at it. So that is part of the reason I'm doing this world building exercise to begin with. So when I was working on this little part of this mystery, it helped me flesh out some aspects of the world that I hadn't considered. Basically, magic users exist. They are kept secret by mandate of the government. There is a government agency that kind of monitors anyone who has magic and enforces the secrecy rule, as well as make sure that no magic users are abusing, their powers to break the law or, harm anyone or whatnot. They also provide resources to magic users. Then we have the cult, which is a sort of magic supremacist cult who, they have their own goals. But beyond that, I hadn't really conceived of any magic user group. And I realized when I was doing this exercise that doesn't make sense. It would seem logical to me now after the fact that there would be other groups as well that operate outside of the government and outside of an extremist group. There is going to be like a average magic user person, group that helps each other, maybe charities, resources, education, merchants even, are there magical items and whatnot. So this helped me realize that I do need to have that middle ground. I do need to fill that space with something. It can't just be empty, because that will have readers asking questions like, well, if you're not in the government and you're not in this cult, then what about your average everyday magic user? Where do they fit into this world? So that really opened my eyes to, again, an area of world building that I had neglected. Fortunately, I don't feel like I need to do too much with it, because it's not, I feel like that's something I can grow organically as I work through the rest of the story and the rest of the plot and answer questions as they come up. So I'm not gonna get too deep in the weeds on that, because I just feel like that then you're getting into an area where you can spend years world building and never write your draft. And I don't want to get bogged down too much with that. But it did help me get a starting point in those areas. So overall, not only did I finally answer this mystery that has been plaguing me for 2 years, and I'm not quite done. I still need to kind of figure out how I'm going to fold it into the plot. I think I know. It just needs a little bit of finessing. But the fact that I now know what happened from start to finish is huge. Because like I said, I have had no idea pretty much for 2 years. I knew the impetus for this mystery. I didn't know anything else about it. And so this is such a huge step for me. And what I think I'm going to do next is apply this method to figuring out what's going on with my book one, mini antagonist. She's the antagonist for this particular book, but she plays a part in a larger scope of things. But I need to figure out all of the same things that I did with this mystery. I'm going to apply that to kind of figuring out how she became this person that is our antagonist and what led up to it and the events that occurred that she is now in this position. That's what I think I'm going to do tomorrow and maybe even Tuesday. Today is Sunday, and just apply that logic to the antagonist. I also need to get some more work done on my secret government agency. I've mentioned a couple of times that I want to be done world building by the end of this month so that I can start August with my outlining process. I'm not going to hold to that if it turns out I'm not ready, but I'm hoping that the deadline encourages me to light a fire under my ass, basically, and get a move on, because I have spent the last 8 weeks pretty much lollygagging. But that is where I'm going to leave it for today. I'm so excited to finally feel excited about my project again, feel connected to it, feel motivated, feel creative. So this is a big step. Thank you guys so much for everything that, all the support that you offer. It is still incredible to me that my writing matters to anyone but me, but it is still holding true that my writing videos are my audience, is where my audience is, and that kind of baffles me, but I love it so much. I love sharing this journey with you guys. So thank you so much, and I hope to see you tomorrow with some more updates. Hello everyone, it is now Monday evening and I have some great news. I actually wrote today. Hallelujah! It took me almost to the end of the day, but I did finally set aside all distractions and sit down and get to work. So what I did today was I applied my method for coming up with the answers to that mystery that I had mentioned and applied it to kind of the history and the motivations and the how of this book's antagonist. I did pretty well. At first it was a struggle. I'll be honest with you, because it just didn't feel, I just wasn't engaged with it as much. And I think that is partially due to distractions. So again, this just goes to show you that you need to, if you want to make writing routine, you can't just wait for the moments to come to you. You have to make time and set aside the things that, might be more entertaining or, whatever, to actually get the work done. But anyway, so I struggled a little bit at first to kind of answer these questions I had. And then I got a burst of inspiration, and it all came to me, and my hand was cramping because I was taking so many notes. But here's the rub. As I was writing all of these sequence events down, and like how this all occurred, and how this antagonist came to be where she is and why and all of that, it occurred to me that I had already had this idea. I had already thought of all of this, and for some reason I didn't write it down, and then I just forgot that I had that idea. So my lesson today is to fucking write down ideas when I have them, instead of just assuming that I'll remember. Because what happens is you take a vacation where you don't do anything, you don't engage with your writing, or you get sick where you get the brain fog, or you are dealing with some stressors in your family life that, take up a lot of mental energy, or all three combined, and then you just completely forget that you have already thought of this brilliant idea. So I'm glad that it was still somewhere in rattling around in this tin can of mine, and it came out on the page today, but it was a very near miss, apparently. So that's really my big update, is fucking write down stuff, because I'm apparently I can't just count on remembering when I have a genius idea. It seems like it might be genius, and how could I possibly forget such a genius idea? I'm such a genius. Well, apparently geniuses forget things too. So those are two big mysteries, two big questions, two big, not kind of plot holes, but like plot elements that need to be figured out that I now have figured out. Which leads me into the next thing. As I was working on this antagonist, I realized that I really do need to sort out my secret government agency. I know that I had started on it, so I've got a very, very, very basic framework, but it is now time. The time has finally come to start filling that in more depth. And the problem is that it's just not very interesting. It's actually quite boring. It's bureaucracy. You're figuring out how the network of bureaucratic agency and how it all fits together, and who the major players are, who reports to whom. And anyway, it's I realized this the first time around when I was working on it, that it's not tremendously exciting. And in the interest of tapping into my energy and my motivation, I moved on from it so that I could continue to be productive in my world building. And now here we are. Here we are. There's no more putting it off, because it really does need structure. It really does need meat on its bones before I can truly trust myself to enter the draft with any confidence. So this week is going to kind of put my determination to the test as I battle kind of the drudgery of world building, the boring things, the things that matter to a degree in the story, even if they're not directly plot relevant now, that they might be later, and you want to have answers. And when that occurred to me earlier today, I just had an overwhelming sense of like, Jesus, how do pantsers do it? How do pantsers go into this and not know, and then have to come up with this mid-draft? That would be such a motivation killer for me. That would completely sap any and all enthusiasm I had for a project. If I was in the middle of a draft and all of a sudden I realized that this government agency is completely naked and bare bones and needs some semblance of realism and, structure and command and people to fill it out and roles that those people fill. And oh my gosh, just it's so overwhelming to me just thinking about it, I couldn't imagine how much of a momentum killer that would be if I was mid-draft. So once again, kudos to you, Pantsers. It is truly awe-inspiring and also like kind of scary what you guys accomplish. That is my update for today. I am going to do my best to, again, apply the principle of make time because it's important to, getting back into this part of the world building. But I'm not very excited about it. But it does need to be done. This is the grunt work that, like it or not, every writer does have to do at some point, even the Pantsers, if they just do it differently. So that's where I'll leave you guys for this evening, and I will see you tomorrow with another update. Hello, everyone. It is time for a quick writing update. Quick because I didn't actually have a lot of time to write today, just the way that my day shook out. Sitting down with my notebook just ended up not being something I was able to do, but I did get some brainstorming done, and I had a thought occur to me as I was trying to finish up with my antagonist's backstory and like the events leading up to her involvement in the plot and how it relates to that first mystery that I had to solve. I realized that there could be some overlap in a way that, again, brings that mystery, that part of of my main character's backstory, and lets it flower into other areas of the plot. And could be useful for further books. And so while I didn't have a chance to kind of dwell more deeply on that, the fact that I realized that there could be overlap and I could tie these two things together was really instructive. And so that when I go to bed tonight, that's what I'm going to be kind of thinking about is how can I make these overlap? And I guess the big thing I don't want to do is make it too cliche, linking the antagonist and an element of my character's backstory. I don't want to rely on that too heavily or make it too, again, cliche. So while it wasn't a big writing day, I did have kind of an idea, and now I just need to explore that idea further to see if it is something that I want to implement into the plot or maybe leave aside and rework it for something else. So kind of a small update today, but again, as long as you're thinking about things, or as long as you're in the weeds and kind of immersing yourself in your idea and your story, just having that at the forefront of your mind is going to in and of itself generate motivation and ideas. So again, small update today, but I'm pleased with it, and I will see you guys tomorrow. Hello, everyone. Quick writing update before I crawl into my bed. I did get some writing done today. It wasn't quite as productive as I was hoping, mostly because I just wasn't in the mood, but it was one of those things where I forced myself to look at it long enough until my brain engaged with it, and by the time that happened, then I just ran out of time. But I did get some productive things on paper, some notes done, and realized some areas that still need some work, so I worked on that. It was really just kind of a maintenance world building day, if that makes sense. Answered just some minor questions that might be plot holes and linked together things that I knew were related but hadn't quite sewn them together yet. I reviewed some old notes to kind of refresh what I had done and had established before. I think last time we spoke, I talked about linking the antagonist and this mystery part of my main character's background and saying if I could bring those two together. I didn't finish that because as I was going through the thought process, I again found some of those minor plot holes that needed to be resolved before I could satisfactorily finish that process. So that's still kind of hanging out there. That's my plan for tomorrow and later next and into next week, to kind of finish that exploration and get into the nitty-gritty details of the secret government agency that still needs to be kind of polished up. But overall, I think I'm starting to feel a little bit of fatigue with the world building and a bit of the sense that I could do this for a year. I could go into the, backstory of the lead investigator in this one department of this agency who appears in, one chapter because it might come up. And it's starting to feel like that kind of spinning my wheels, which I think means that I am almost ready to just get into the first draft of the outline, which is good because again, I want to start that on August 1st, which is next Thursday. So I think I'm in a good spot. This whole next week is just going to be cleanup and kind of answering some lingering questions. And if anything comes up beyond that, I will just write it down and leave it at that. I'm not going to linger on the world building too much, in the way that I have been the last couple of months. While it wasn't like super productive, like in terms of big hard hitting questions being answered and like aha moments, it was kind of necessary as a maintenance day, both in that these minor details did need to be ironed out, but also I did it on a day where I wasn't really feeling it. As we have established, if I am knocked out of my routine or if I stray too far from my project, then it's just going to be a self-perpetuating cycle where I would just stray further and further because I don't feel it that day or the next day or then the next day because I've drifted too far. I'm talking in circles. If you can tell, I'm tired. So like I said, not like wholly productive, but still kind of vital in terms of maintaining momentum, maintaining motivation, and kind of filling in the gaps that, might be just potholes now, but could be like really big voids later if I let them fester for too long. So that's my update. And that is the end of this writing vlog. Thank you guys so much for watching. I am so glad to kind of be back in a rhythm now, finally, after what has been several weeks of just kind of disharmony in my routine and my personal life and everything going on. And I am really looking forward to this final world building week and getting myself ready for the outlining process. In my next video, I will have a reading vlog for you, and I hope you look forward to it, and I will see you then. Bye.